All right, so Racing Bulls. What do we expect from Red Bull's junior team in 2026? So today I'm going to be doing my season preview for Racing Bulls 2026 F1 season. First, I want to take a look at some key team info for the Faenza squad. Now, of course, CEO Peter Beyer, same as last year, but they do have a new full-time team principal, Alan Permain, who of course has been in F1 for a long time. Gets his first shot at a team principal role. Of course, took over midway through last season when Christian Horner got shuffled out of Red Bull. Chief Technical Officer, same as last year, Tim Gloss, but this is a team that is using a new engine in 2026 in the Red Bull powertrains slash Ford, dash Ford engine, of course. Now, in terms of their 2025 results, it was actually a pretty good season by the standards of this team, and it does kind of fit into a trend of Red Bull's junior team peaking in the final year of a set of regulations. But for 2025, across the board, they were sixth in quite a few statistical categories, including points, where they had 92, which is a pretty good haul. Came pretty close to hitting triple digits there. Pole gap, average pole gap last season was also quite impressive. 0.782 seconds, which comes out in 6th. Average minimum finishing position, which basically is a proxy of race performance because sometimes points can be a little bit misleading. 8.58, which is quite good. And again, 6th, quite a bit above the Aston, Sauber, Haas group, but and a little bit behind Williams, who are one position ahead of them in 5th. Now, in terms of this team, this factory, and its record in the first year of major regulation cycles, it's been pretty poor. 2005, of course, back when they were minority, they finished 10th with 7 points. But, of course, the big caveat with that is that I believe all of those points actually were scored during the 2005 Indianapolis Grand Prix, where, of course, there was only 6 cars in the race. So, again, a bit of a misleading stat, that one. 2009, though, they finished 10th dead last with only 8 points. Clear worst car that year, in my opinion. 2014, they finished 7th, but still they only managed 30 points, and this is again with the 25-point system. So it shows that even though they were 7th, they were still miles off the top 6 that year, if I recall correctly. And then 2022, the last major regulation change we had, they finished 9th with 35 points, which was a massive drop-off from a very, very strong season that they had the year before in 2021. So based on that, generally the expectation would be that this is going to be a team that I think is probably going to have a rough year and almost certainly is going to do worse statistically than they did in 2025, especially given that they're going to have a brand new power unit. But that being said, from the first signs that we saw of that brand new power unit at the Barcelona shakedown, as it's officially called, looks like the engine doesn't seem to be that bad and may not be the worst engine this year. Now, taking a look at their driver lineup, a new lineup for 2026, and F1's only rookie so far this year. Of course, there's always the possibility a rookie gets called in mid-season, but at least for the start of the season, it's the only rookie we have so far. So Liam Lawson now becomes de facto team leader. He's from New Zealand, 23 years of age at the start of this season. And this is, depending on how you count it, you could argue it's his 3rd season in F1. He has 35 starts to his name, 44 career points, and his career best in the Drivers' Championship is 13th, which he achieved last year. Joining him at Racing Bulls will be Arvid Lindblad from the United Kingdom, 18 years of age, so 1 year younger than Kimi Antonelli. And of course, this is his first season in F1, so he's never started a race, never scored a point, and he's also never been classified in the championship. So, looking at some more stats, of course, for Lindblad, these are all irrelevant, but for Lawson, of course, no wins, poles, or podiums in his career. In terms of my expected points model, the amount of points that a driver is expected to score based on things like reliability, how strong the car is, the starting position, Lawson's career average is about 75%, which is not great. It's a little bit below what you would want. It'll be interesting to see if Lawson can turn that number around this year and be, closer to 100. Now, in terms of quality rating and race rating, this is a little bit of an odd and a little bit misleading as well for Lawson. His quality rating is positive 0.119, so a little bit below average, and that ranks 58th out of all drivers in F1 since 1995. Race rating, I think, is the one that's more misleading. It's negative 0.423, which ranks 93rd out of, I think, 120 drivers. So not great either, and it's a little bit odd that it's worse. The ranking is worse than his quali one, given that the general, I think most people's understanding is that he's a better racer than a qualifier. But because of the criteria I used, it meant that his 2 partial seasons were not included. In fact, even though those seasons were perhaps a little bit more impressive from a racing point of view than the season he just had this past year. Now, finishing up with some predictions for this lineup, I think it's going to be an interesting one, and given that Lindblad's a rookie, it makes it quite hard to make predictions. But given where Lindblad was this past season, in Formula 2, I would say he's a little bit behind where, Antonelli was at this point last year. And again, he, I think, had a bit of a rough season in Formula 2. It was a good season, but it was not a great season. I do think Lawson should out-qualify and out-race Lindblad, but if I had to choose one of those 2 categories where Lindblad were to have the upper hand, I think qualifying would be more likely. But based on the model and based on some relatively arbitrary numbers I basically put into the system and then calculated, it's predicting that Lawson should out-qualify Lindblad by about 1.7 tenths of a second. This time last year, or a little bit later, I should say, my model predicted that Lawson would out-qualify Hadjar by roughly the same amount. Of course, that did not happen. So we shall see what happens in qualifying. In terms of the race portion, like I did with the previous teams, assuming that this team is a front-running team, which I think probably not going to happen, it's a bold prediction there, but assuming this team gets 500 points, this is what the percentage of team points would play out. So Lawson would be predicted to get 53.4% of the team's points, and Lindblad the other 46.6%. And when you could take that 500 points, split the points up based on those percentages, it means that Lawson would finish 34 points ahead of Lindblad. So relatively close in the Drivers' Championship, I think, is a reasonable prediction, I think, for the 2 of them. But it'll be interesting to see how this lineup goes. I think it'll be a big year for both Lawson and Lindblad. Lawson, of course, is going to want to get a bit of a foothold in F1 and maybe have a strong season so that he's not, on the chopping block for, another rookie coming in through Red Bull system in 2027. And for Lindblad, this is obviously his first season. Expectations are going to be high. Maybe not as high as, say, Antonelli last year, but I think definitely higher than what Lindblad or what Hadjar had coming into this team this time 12 months ago. So again, it'll be an interesting team to look and see how they do. Should be an interesting season. I think they should be in the mix. I do think they expect them to be a little bit towards the bottom of the grid, but nonetheless, it should be an exciting year for the team. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.